Welcome to the Creative Rebelution podcast. I am your host. This is Suze, the Creative Rebel. Welcome to the Creative Rebelution podcast. I'm Suze, the Creative Rebel, your host, and today we have a very special guest with us. The reason this is very special and exciting for me is because this is the first interview that I've done on the Creative Rebelution podcast. So I wanted to start with a bang, rather than going out with a bang. So we're going to start with a bang. And so we brought someone all the way from Miami. We have with us Cheryl Maria. And Cheryl Maria is an amazing pop star. She reminds me of Belinda Carlisle if you're a fan of the 80s. And she's got an incredible voice. She's got an incredible vibe, incredible energy, spiritual person, just phenomenal person. We have so much to talk about. And last night was the first time we met in person. We've been chatting away on WhatsApp, getting to know each other, but this is the first time that we've met in person. So it's been lovely to have you here in my apartment where we're filming from. And I'll hand over to you and just say whatever you want.
What an intro. I'm like, wow, overwhelmed. Thank you so much. It's very exciting for me to be here finally in Malta and very excited to even be playing here this time. I was really excited about your podcast. Thank you for your shout out, by the way. It was really cool. It was such a great topic, and everything that you were talking about, it really hit home for me because mental health is such a great part of creating art. And we learn so much about ourselves as we create and as we move forward. And very often the art that we create is a result of that process, of the pains and victories, so to speak, that we have in our lives. And that is, I think, when it resonates as well with our listeners or with people in general, is because everybody goes through shit,
Well, so, one of the things that
I'm allowed to swear? I didn't.
Yeah, it's the Creative Revolution. I think rebels can swear.
Good.
We might get censored on YouTube, but we'll live. We can always move to Rumble.
Right.
So, actually, one of the things I do with my creative clients is I get them to write victory lists, okay?
Sweet.
And it can even be like, I did the washing up today, okay? Because as an artist and creative, there are times in our life where we can't do anything. And people have no idea what goes on behind the scenes as an artist and a creative. You might see us looking fabulous or, getting on stage and doing something incredible like you do, but no one really knows what goes on behind the scenes for an artist and a creative. And generally, artists and creatives are sensitive people. Sure. They're often healers. They're often people who are very, very, very sensitive, which is why they have such a very, very special gift, right? Mm-hmm. And Cheryl has a very, very special gift, which is her voice. And you're a dancer. I saw you dancing last night. We played dressing up last night, which was kind of fun. That's my favorite game, basically. Mm-hmm. If I want to give myself some more energy, then I will play dressing up and get into the mood and do some singing and dancing. But if you're stuck in survival mode as an artist and creative, which is why I created this podcast, was to kind of find the algorithm of why artists and creatives, the healers, the sensitives, the misfits, why are we always so poor? Why are we left out? Exactly. Like, why are we not given money? Like, why do you sing a whole night for people in a bar and they think they can just take that for free? You know what I mean? They're paying for their drinks. They have no problem paying for the drinks, but they have a major problem with putting some money in the hat, right?
Yeah, so, not everybody has a problem with it, but it is more common to accept music for free than it is to accept food for free or anything else.
Which is why I feel like platforms like Spotify, for example, are kind of taking advantage of the artist, because every artist that I speak to who's on Spotify is so grateful to get some, exposure
and listening.
Yeah, but they don't actually get any of the profits, right? So they maybe get like 10 cents or something.
It is a very small margin of income from Spotify, especially for independent artists and startup artists.
Yeah.
So it is actually the whole music industry is a very difficult thing to start. It's a lot more work than anybody really thinks. They're like, oh yeah, I was in a taxi yesterday and he was like, oh, it must be great to be a musician. You just get to live the chill life and no work, just playing music. And I was like, sure.
Yeah, we just sit on our asses all day, just singing songs.
Like, it's a lot more work than you might think.
Yeah. Like, we also have to do housework and take care of our homes and pay the rent.
As an independent musician, you play all the roles. You play the creator, you play the business person, the
branding person, the marketing person. You have like 10 hats on, and people don't even realize, right?
Yes.
Which is why Cheryl obviously has a manager. He's sitting here in the room. You can't see him right now, but he's here. So we have a little audience today. We have her manager, Nick. We also have Nick's daughter, Allison, who is gaming over there, I would imagine. And then on the left of me, I have my partner in crime who set up all the technology for me, because that's another thing that as an artist and creative, I have always struggled with. You know, it's great. It's a lot. It's a lot. You know, you got to know your strengths and your weaknesses. So what are your weaknesses?
God, everything. No,
that's
I'm
vices.
really excited.
I said
oh,
weaknesses.
Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the visual is my weakness.
The visual?
The visual and the presentation of
So when you
myself.
say visual, do you mean like organizing the camera work and stuff?
Right, organizing the camera, setting up the shot, finding out what to wear, like picking the colors,
making
all that
the
kind
decisions
of thing.
by
Making
yourself,
all those decisions,
right.
I'm not strong in that at all. And I have a very good friend who has just stepped up to help me with that visual creation, and she's helping me now with my website.
Amazing.
Thea,
thank you to that person. You can do a shout out to her.
Yes, thank you, Thea. You are the bomb, I would say. Absolutely amazing and great input from her. So she is a phenomenal visual creator, everything from branding to website, photography, everything like that. So
I'm going to do a shout out to Marcelle, who did my branding for so many years for free. You know, and like now she's so busy, like she doesn't even have time.
Right.
Even if I want to pay her, even if I want to pay her now, she's so busy.
Yes. So I think we can put a link, right, for people to contact.
For sure, yeah, 100%.
I think
so
she does such a great job.
Okay, the thing with podcast is that no one ever clicks the link, but luckily this is going on YouTube, where YouTube everyone clicks links. So
absolutely.
Underneath this video, if I remember, because I have short-term remembering loss, we will put the links to Marcel's work, and we'll put the links to Thea's work. So that if you want to reach out to someone, then you can support the people behind the artist who are supporting us, and often supporting us for free, because they know that we are doing everything on a zero budget, and that we're trying to do all this work by ourselves.
And that part of the work is an art form in itself. It is a different
it's a
type
skill
of
set.
art, but it's an incredible skill set, and it's so valuable. And I really just like, you can't do just one. Like for me, I can sing and I can do the song, but it takes so much more work behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And each one is a piece of art. Even the setting up of the camera and the whole, like making sure the audio is correct. If you have somebody to take care of all those other details and you can just get up there and perform, it's just like, oh my God,
relax,
what a breath.
you know? Yeah.
Then you can finally enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. But that's
so
the problem.
Really
like,
exciting.
You know, and just going back to the mental health topic that you were talking about, because, you know, between you and I've just come out of hospital, right? You know, which is not something we talk about, because there's still a huge stigma around mental health, right? And I would go as far to say it's not even mental health anyway, because
just a little more.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
almost turning over my shoulder.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get comfy. So, so for me, I don't even think that mental health is mental health, because it affects us on a cellular level, right? It affects every area of our life and our work. Like if we are stuck in survival mode and people are refusing to pay us for our job, then we end up paying for it ourselves, right?
Yep.
And that comes out of our pocket, which if it's not coming from music, I mean, I don't know a single actor who is... So I'm shouting. I'm getting so excited. Yeah. Right. I don't know a single actor who is not a waitress or something else.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. And in living in the US, there is a huge community of artists, singers, musicians, and creatives in general who are working one or two jobs on top of doing your creative work, because it's difficult. And you could say in the general economy, art tends to be the first thing when there's a lack in the economy. Art is one of the first things that people stop paying for
art
because it feels like a luxury. It's like, well, I can't do without food, I can't do without my electricity, but I can do without my music.
Can't do without internet these days.
Right. So art and music tends to be the first thing that goes. But also, if you look at what would a culture be like without art and music, it would be a very sad, gray, and boring existence.
Tina Turner would be, what's the expression? Rolling in a grave
yes.
Right now, if she knew that like someone as talented as you know, was having to struggle to get things going. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and I think it is a natural part of starting up as an artist. You do have to be prepared, as with any business. I think you have to be prepared for a couple of years that you're investing, even if yeah, well,
try 10 or 15.
Right, but you do have to plan it a little bit so that within a certain amount of time, that you do get to the point where at least your business, I'm going to say business because your art is a business. If you're going to create art and
to be
live from it, to be sustainable, it is a business and it's your passion. So you're combining two things, which is a balance, and it's not necessarily the easiest balance to find, but it is the right, like, it's just like every part of life is balance. You have a family, you have your work, you have everything like that. When you're doing art, you're learning to combine all those things, your love, your passion, your
sensitivities,
your vulnerabilities, and you're putting them into something which is monetizable. Like, you can make money from that. And you just have to learn how to find that right balance in creating something that attracts customers, that attracts people that will buy it, that will willingly pay for it. And it's part of it is valuing yourself, and the other part is making sure that it's well packaged and well presented.
But and everything you're saying is correct, but the other issue is that sometimes I think David Bowie, and obviously this is like the most terrible quote, you know, but he said something like, don't, sort of, kind of what he's saying is like, don't perform for the cheap seats, as in like, like, he said something, I'll find the quote and we'll put it underneath this podcast so you can, so I don't abuse what David Bowie say, but basically he's saying like, if you make art for your fans, you lose yourself in the process.
Right. Exactly.
And I learned the hard way when I set up my membership platform on Patreon, because I felt like I was losing my art, you know, like my original purpose for my channel was completely lost, because what the fans wanted, and then if money is involved, you start to feel as if like, if I don't give them what they want, they're going to stop paying.
So then you're giving what they're paying for.
And then if it's not what you want to be doing, after a while, you start to hate your own art. And that happened to me, and that's a really scary process. So you were mentioning earlier about a new membership platform that you were going to introduce me to, something. So
Bandzoogle is actually a website platform which is catered directly for musicians, bands, and singers. And it's very easily what do you call it?
Accessible?
Not just accessible, but like
it's like a really good setup.
It's a
really
good
well
setup.
designed.
So it's easy just to design, to put your own information and pictures and everything like that, and kind of adjust it to your own brand and your own music. And they have a portion of it where you can add a blog, and there's a portion of it where you can add membership tiers, just like Patreon. And the difference between Patreon and Bandzoogle is that Bandzoogle doesn't take a percentage. You're paying for the website. You have a very reasonable price for the website, just like anything else, and you have it all in one. So then you have your membership thing where you can do tiers, just like Patreon. And it's a phenomenal thing. So
I was very grateful to Patreon for setting up what they set up, because it's incredible.
An amazing platform. Patreon
it is. It's amazing, and you know,
and they've done a great job.
Yeah, they do, and the customer support is unbelievable. Like, if you want to get, if like I needed to prove my earnings, and I wrote to them, and within 24 hours I had support, and they sent me prints out of with graphs and everything. So customer support is fantastic. So, but you are paying 10% of all your earnings, I think, something like that.
And it depends. You have different levels with Patreon. Like, you can have the basic level where you only pay, I think, 5 or 6 or something like that percent. And
I think I'm on
medium
6.
one.
I was one of the original
Yeah.
people on Patreon, so I think I'm capped at 6%. But one of the issues for me was that now I want to let my fans sign up whenever they want to, and I'm not even though I'm sort of archived in as an archived Patreon creator. I for some reason they don't allow old patrons to make changes, whereas the new people can make changes. And that was the point where I was like, that doesn't seem to make sense for me. You would think people who were in at the beginning would have more, more freedom and more, rewards than the people who joined later, but it doesn't seem to be that way. So this is very interesting for me because one of the platforms that I started on was a company called VidMe, which is predominantly for gamers, right? It doesn't exist anymore. And it was very funny when they collapsed as a company. I don't know what happened to them, but they wrote to us and they basically said, we're closing and you've got 2 weeks notice.
Oh, wow.
And their motto was the most creator-friendly platform, right? And I was like, that's not super creator friendly that I can't tell. I wasn't allowed to write to my fans to tell them where I was going. So my YouTube channel came down, my first YouTube channel.
Right.
It got taken down by a troll. My second platform on VidMe got taken down. Right. And I had nowhere to direct my fans. Luckily, people would just put Suze in the Google search and found me, and my patrons had, well, they weren't patrons at the time, they were just YouTube fans. I didn't make any money at this point. On VidMe, I was making about $500 a month.
Okay.
I had about 300 fans paying. And then I moved to Patreon, where instead of paying $8 a month, they were paying 25. Right? And they were able to upgrade from 8 to 25 effortlessly, but I didn't have 300 fans. I had about the most I had on Patreon was 90.
Yeah.
And the problem was I wanted to make content where I had a lot of freedom, right? So if I want to be naked or semi-naked in my videos or whatever, you know what I mean? Because obviously if you're making a music video, my whole
you can use nudity to your body. Or
my whole branding
like
was about authenticity. It's not made for kids, you know. My art is for adults, so I wanted it to be 18 plus. I didn't want kids to see my stuff because it's not really for them. I was tackling heavy subjects. We were tackling subjects around shame. We were tackling subjects around self-healing. You know, sometimes I would be crying while I'm over the death of my cat or something. You know, I didn't want to traumatize little kids, right? So it wasn't just about the nudity, because I think most kids don't give a monkeys, right? But they made it in a way that it made it kind of non-safe for work, which put it in a category that meant I couldn't get any traffic. Yeah. So even though I was probably, at one point I was probably, and I don't know if this is, you know, the complete truth, but I believe I definitely did one of the top launches on Patreon, because I made, I think it's 2,500 in 1 month.
That's great.
Yeah. And yet, because I was on an 18 plus channel, I didn't get any traffic, right?
Exactly.
So, so that
I noticed that when I opened my Patreon page as well, because I was expecting the same, actually very similar content, just a lot about self-healing, nudity if necessary, but really just more about just authenticity and like raw life emotions and everything. And so I opened it up as 18 plus, and then I was like, people who go to the page and the first thing you see is a warning, this is 18 plus, and it looks like it's probably porn or something. So
exactly.
I was like, I can't start like that. It's not.
It's funny actually. One woman. We're here on the island of Gozo. She's come all the way from Miami via Amsterdam and Zurich to the island of Gozo that no one's ever heard of. And there's a woman here who I'm hoping to interview on my podcast, because she's in sustainable fashion, and she thought I was a porn star.
Right. It's kind of like having an OnlyFans page.
I did have an OnlyFans page because I wanted to see if the platform was better than Patreon. Right. And in all honesty, it kind of was. If it wasn't known for porn, there's like personal trainers on OnlyFans. There's a lot of different
from
things.
From what I've seen,
but
I haven't actually discovered it myself.
Yeah, but unfortunately, if you tell someone you have an OnlyFans account, the first thing they're going to assume is that you're in a bikini.
Yeah.
So at best.
Right. At
worst, they're going to think worse things.
Well, I don't want to judge it as worse necessarily.
Okay. No, I agree. But not. I want it
more stigmatized things.
more stigmatized things, and I wanted to be seen as an artist and a creative, and I didn't want that stigma hanging over my head.
Exactly. You don't want people just to think that you're selling your body.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's actually, you're creating art and you're looking for support for the art.
Exactly. And my fans, my really loyal fans, know that. They know that they're here for the art. Some come for the psychology. Some have never even seen my body because they've only watched YouTube, you know, and they don't have the money for Patreon.
And what does it matter?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we got porn out the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so so many directions this could go in.
Yes.
So we were going to talk about your single.
Yes.
Okay, so your single's called Loneliness, right? And then I found a video by Red Hot Chili Peppers, which was of the same theme, and I thought, wow, loneliness is a topic for discussion, you know, like...
There are actually a lot of songs, if you look into it, there are a lot of songs that are on the theme of loneliness. And loneliness in itself is a huge topic. Actually, there's a lot of media right now talking about loneliness, curing loneliness.
Teal Swan's written a book on it. Do you know Teal Swan?
Yes, yes.
Spiritual teacher.
Yeah,
she's written a book on loneliness. I haven't read it, but I have to be honest, I do love her stuff.
Yeah, I always see her stuff on YouTube. But the loneliness subject, there are many aspects of it. And people are saying there's a loneliness pandemic. And I do agree that there is a huge part where people are too blocked in themselves and not able to find a safe place or a safe community or even a couple of people or one person to fully and safely be themselves and to open up themselves. Where this song is coming from, where I wrote this song, was actually from a place of...
You can speak to the audience.
I'm kind of going between because it's so far this way and that way.
Speak to the audience.
Here we are.
Speak to the audience because they're the ones that are wanting to hear about your
but
success.
you're right here with me.
Yeah, I love being here with you.
Yes,
it's great.
And I love that. So it came from a place where I had just gotten away from a very toxic situation and I had really not been free. And I became free. But then I was all alone. I had lost all community.
Oh, yeah, you've lost your team.
Right, my whole team. And I wasn't sure really what I was going to do. But this song came out in this place of realizing that now I have this freedom. I have this great gift that was given to me of being free to be myself. And it feels very lonely. It feels very lonely. And I've heard this a lot, even from other artists. And I've heard this from... I think you mentioned David Bowie earlier. I think he said that, like, just that...
Can't imagine David Bowie being lonely.
Right, but it's a place of being completely alone. I can't remember which artist I've heard it from, but this... Just being completely alone and being yourself...
Kurt Cobain could be one.
Yeah. That... You might be right. But
Amy Winehouse, I would imagine.
You know what? It's probably all of them.
I would imagine. I imagine Whitney Houston would feel pretty lonely. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like being famous is actually not. I haven't been famous. You know, I mean, I'm only famous amongst my fans. But you know, being famous, I would imagine, would be quite a lonely life because people are probably not very real with you.
Yes. What I'm speaking of is that space of where you're able to take that feeling of loneliness, embrace it for a time, and knowing that that is also going to pass.
Right.
The lonely feeling is not it's not there to stay. Like it's thick, it's like a storm, it's like a cloud, and it's very sort of dark and cold in that moment. But acknowledging this is the time, but it's not going to be forever.
Yes.
And that's where the song came from.
But if you don't have anyone around you to tell you that, and you're the only one that can tell you that, who do you turn to?
Right. Which is, honestly, that was kind of why I wrote the song, because it was my own sort of spirit. It was my own subconscious that was speaking to me. Or maybe you could say it was God. That was, you know, because where else do you turn to but God or like spiritual?
And we spoke about this before. Yeah. We were having a little chat on the phone about what we should talk about in our podcast. And obviously, you know, Cheryl's just released her first single called Loneliness. So obviously
Cheers to that.
we're definitely going to have a link to that underneath this video. And if you're listening to it on podcast, please get in the habit of start clicking on links, because there's buttons there where you can donate as well if you enjoy this podcast.
Yeah.
Remember to be a patron of the arts, you know, like donate to Cheryl by buying her album. They're usually like what, $1?
Yeah.
Like for a single.
It's a single, so it'll be like $1 or $2.
Exact.
Or you can...
Who can't afford $1? But what you got to understand is that, let's say, I don't know, I'm just going to make up a number. Let's say 300 people watch this podcast or watch this YouTube video. And if everyone donated $1, that's $300.
There you go. That's like a restaurant gig.
Yeah, like $1 doesn't seem that much. Do you know what I mean? To listen to something that you've created from scratch.
Yeah.
And where did you produce the song? Was it out in Miami or?
So I actually recorded it at home, and I worked with a producer in Sweden, and we
Was
worked
this during
over
lockdown?
distance. No, it was just that I didn't have the money to fly to Sweden
Oh, man.
or to rent a studio in Miami. So actually this producer, Peter, is phenomenal. He's got his own website where he produces
Shout out to
everything. Peter Blatt, thank you. And he offered to produce the song for free and split the royalties. So I was like, hell yeah.
Can I get a
let's get this
hello there?
bang, bang. So yes, and that's what you do in music. That's a very beautiful way to grow, is to collaborate with people and to share in, if you don't have the money yet, but you're going to make money from your music eventually, so you share in the profits and you say, look, this is how we're going to grow. We're going to grow together.
We want to pay the people that work with us, right? So first of all, we have to pay the producer, then we have to pay the manager, then we have to pay the artist.
You know that when you upload your song onto, whether it's, I think it's in DistroKid, I use DistroKid for uploading your songs.
What's that?
It's a distributor.
DistroKid.
So when
I'm not
you
down with the kids. I don't know what that is.
So when you upload your song, you use a distributor to get it to Spotify, iTunes, etc., etc.
Okay.
And DistroKid is one. There's
it's like
CD
on
Baby.
Anchor, on the podcast they distribute.
Right.
I love Anchor.
Exactly, yeah.
I'll do a shout out to Anchor FM.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Alison's on the ball. She just gave me a time limit to say that we're
getting close.
wrapping up. We've got 7 minutes left.
Lovely. All right. So this has been such a fun conversation already. But yeah, when you upload your song to DistroKid, you have the opportunity to add the credits of all the people that are collaborating with you and that are doing all the roles, just like with a movie. And I think that's phenomenal, because it does take a huge team to create music, and it does take a huge team to really produce something great. And I love being able to collaborate.
It takes
and just
a huge team. Like, you know, like if you were actually giving thanks, you'd be like, thanks, Mom, because you made me go to all those ballet classes, you know.
Yeah.
Thanks, you know, like Hans, my partner, because he dresses me up, or, you know what I mean? You would like thank the people that gave you the free clothes. You would thank the people that gave you the, you know, did your makeup, or friends that just gave you
or people
the
who come to
jewelry
the
or
shows,
something.
or people who give you back energy, people
and
who
thanks
comment
to the
on
fans.
your posts. You know,
I
like
would love to put a shout out to my fans. You know?
Everything
shout out
that
to my
people
patrons.
do.
Thank you for supporting me.
Thank you, my loves. So it's really, really amazing when people feel your music and feel your content, even if it's a conversation, and join the conversation, and do, like, if you see this and you have something to say, drop a comment, share the content, share it, say this is a fun conversation, and look what these guys are doing, and I listened to the song, wow, it gave me this feeling or that feeling. Or if you hate it, hey, you know what, I didn't like it. Say something, because saying something, in my opinion, is better than not saying anything, because it's just like leaving it out there in the ether. Yes.
That's the thing that I struggled with. As soon as I started making money from my content, my fans stopped leaving comments because they felt, well, I've given you money anyway, so I don't need to leave a comment.
Right.
And also, I think the feedback I got was that people were struggling with the Patreon platform, you know, as being sort of accessible.
Right.
Whereas YouTube, what I love about YouTube is that it's so easy. I can be on the phone.
It's easy to find anything.
I can be on the phone. I get YouTube Premium, so I don't have adverts interrupting me. I have to pay them to stop harassing me with adverts. Okay.
Right.
Anyway, so I'm listening to the YouTube video, and I can just be putting a comment. Oh, this is amazing. This is great. Thanks so much. Really enjoyed the chat. Takes 2 seconds, but don't underestimate how important that is. That is food for the artist. I'm not saying it's actual food. We do actually need food physically to live as well. But if you're in a position where
it's food for the art.
But if you're also on a zero budget and you can't give food, give a like. You know, and maybe give a comment. Like, you can give that much. If you can't be bothered to give that much, then, you know what I mean? Then you are kind of taking without giving anything in return. And it is a two-way conversation. Like, the artist needs the audience and the audience needs the artist, because if we weren't creating this content, you'd have nothing to watch on YouTube. But if you guys weren't here, we'd have no one to talk to. So, you know what I mean? It's like,
and it's a conversation.
And I do these podcasts for free. I don't get paid for this. But what I love about them is that I get to learn things. Like, you've just taught me about, let me see if I can remember this because my memory's so bad. Distrokid.
Right.
And the other one was
Bandzoogle.
Bandzoogle.
Yeah.
All right. So that's two new things I've learned today. So for me, I come on here and I've got fed by Cheryl.
Thank you.
And I'm drinking a lot of water because we had a little bit of wine last night.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for having me.
It's
been
a pleasure.
such a pleasure.
Thank you so much
amazing.
for coming.
And I'm
coming all the way from Miami. She didn't just come for my podcast, but for me, I can pretend that she just came here just for my podcast. She's actually going to be performing in Valletta, Malta tonight, but by the time you get this, that will already have happened. I'll report back how many people put money in the hat. We can do a social experiment.
That'd be fun.
And also, you've just finished a cruise, right?
Yes, I've been doing singing on a couple of different cruises with Viking cruises, and it's been quite fun.
Yeah.
I've been on as a guest, so they call me in when they have an emergency and somebody else can't make it.
Okay.
Because I'm accessible and I'm professional and accessible. I'm good enough and I'm available enough, so they keep calling me back, and I like that because it's a really nice.
You get to see the world, right?
Yes. Also, the teams and the ships, they have a very fun energy to be with, so I do enjoy it as well.
Okay, cool. All right, well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and thank you for being my first guest. I hope there will be more guests. And
thank you for having me. You're my first podcast,
I hope you will come back, even if I have to go to Miami. I think that's a good plan.
I think you should.
Yeah. Cool.
I've got a really nice place over there. So
awesome. I'd love to come visit you.
You should definitely come and visit.
Excellent.
It's going to be delicious.
Well, thank you. I would love to take you up on that offer. All right, thank you, everyone. Let's gong out just for fun. Okay,
Bye.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and audience, you can give your feedback if you like now, so.
Cheers, my love.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Let's hug it out. If you have enjoyed this, you can continue to listen to Creative Rebelution podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and all other podcast platforms. If you would like to donate something in return for this free content, you can support us at paypal.me/Suze the Creative Rebel. Creative Rebelution is also on YouTube. For coaching and to pick up your free gift, check out the description below this episode. I have been Suze the Creative Rebel, and this is the Creative Rebelution podcast.